Thank you so much, Joel, for coming on our Talent Talks podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I just wanted to let you introduce yourself to begin with and talk a little bit about why I've asked you here today to talk about our candidate expectations, how they're changing, and the future of work.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been working in recruitment for almost 19 years now. Just to give you a quick overview of where that journey's taken me, I started as a temps controller. So I've always managed large workforces of temporary staff. Started off with just a few temps out and then sort of managed up to 200 temps a day. I've managed huge accounts, especially in the Midlands, such as Capital One, Icano, the NHS, and also done a lot of ad hoc work as well. After doing that for a few years, I transitioned into more management roles, and I worked up in Manchester doing permanent and temporary recruitment again, managed a large branch of recruiters. In 2014, I joined another recruiter, national recruiter, as a director, and my job there was to open new operations for them across the UK. So I managed a team of 60 recruiters from London up to Manchester, and did really well there. But in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, I decided to take the plunge and use all that expertise to set up my own agency. So today I represent and work for Prescient Group, and we are specialist recruiters within office professionals. We do temporary, permanent and retained and managed service work. And we are based in mainly Nottingham, but we also have Manchester and London too. But I absolutely love what I do, and we've had quite a lot of interest in lots of different sectors, so I hope to bring you some insight today.
Definitely an expert in your field. It's just why we're so thrilled to have you here today. But first of all, I just wanted to kick off on a really hot topic about kind of candidate expectations and kind of what they're looking for when they're looking for their next role. So I just wanted to understand a little bit from your experience how that's changed over the last kind of 10 to 5 years.
Yeah, and I think what you said there, 10 years is where things have really changed. I'm at a generation, I'm 40 years old, so I'm at the beginning of the millennials, and the workforce at the moment as of 2020 will be made up of 50% millennials and the younger generation. But you do have in the workforce up to 4 or 5 different generations at one time. So there's a big challenges that you've got to manage. Lots of different expectations and different motivators. Some people have come through such different social and economic different situations. So there is a big change. I think, so as of 10 years ago, social media became a very big tool, and that's brought a lot of opportunity, a lot of challenges. I think the key thing that a lot of candidates always want from us as an employer, but also when we work forward from, is communication. Social media can be great to attract and engage with the people, but it can take away that beginning part of a simple phone conversation. And I think things can get lost in translation. So more than anything, the main principles of clear and communication and setting out clear agendas of what you want and what you want to achieve for an employer and a candidate is key.
And what would you say candidates are asking for now, kind of when you're first doing that initial screening call with them, that perhaps they weren't asking for kind of 10 to 5 years ago?
Again, it's such a variety, and I think the key thing we've done is we've done a lot of research into motivators, and I come back to those generations. You've got to think from the baby boomers, the key thing for them was having job stability, is having a role where you can have progression in life. If you bring it all the way to the beginning side, it's quite common for people within the younger generation to really want to have a lot of variety. They want to change jobs, they want to learn new skills, and they want to be taken through that. So there is that big change. It's looking at different ones. I think what keeps it quite exciting for us is because we work with such a variety of different organisations, we can really look in more detail when we take a job brief to what they're looking for. But some of the key things mainly is flexible working, having principles in terms of where the company's going, what investment they put into their employees. They're the key things that keep coming through again and again, yeah.
So talking about kind of work-life balance and flexible working, so obviously the pandemic had a massive impact on what that actually means. So how have you found that transition coming out of the pandemic and kind of focusing on those 2 points?
So I think work-life balance has become a norm expectation, even though recently we've seen a lot of companies shifting. It was only last week JP Morgan was announcing that they wanted everyone back in the office full time,
Happening a
which
lot.
came as a bit of a challenge. I think you've got two extremes. You've got either people really wanting to go back to old ways, but people really embracing the new. Um, from an employer point of view, and I think as a UK national sort of issue, productivity in the UK has been decreasing year by year. So it's becoming a bit of a problem. And I think a lot of employers naturally will think, does that correlate with work-life balance and having a bit more flexible working, home working? And that's a big question. There has been a big study of 61 companies in various different countries about a 4-day working week. And of those companies that were taking place, 92% have actually continued after 6 months with a 4-day working week. And it's proved that productivity hasn't dropped.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't do that in every single industry, but it is proving that it is as a potential. And I think half the issue is the shift in change and people taking risk. From an employer point of view, in the current sort of economic environment and with challenges, is it a risk people can afford to take? And change can be scary. So that's more from an employer point of view. I think from an employee point of view, it has become much more of a genuine why not? Why can't we have this? People do work well. If they're not working efficiently and productively, is it because of more of a training issue? Have they got the right management? Is it because they're working from home? I don't think it is. We had 2 roles recently which were very similar in the job category. They were both IT-based roles in London. The difference was one was office-based, much more higher salary. Salary is difference by £10,000. They offered bonuses. It looked more of a traditional way of working. The other employer, the other organisation, was different type. They offered a 35-hour working week, Friday afternoons off, flexible approach, but the salaries are much lower. The type of candidates they attract naturally were completely different.
Yeah.
And the question we had to look at was, were those candidates both right for each other if they could at each other's organisation? And I think the answer would be yes, but it was just based on different policies and what people wanted. You did see a difference in the type of people who were looking. But it is a big topic. What happens here at Ideagen in terms of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's such an interesting story that you just brought up, like kind of how you go about attracting people. But we do kind of a hybrid. So we do, well, this is for the UK office. We do home-based. Again, it depends on the role. For that particular role, do you need someone in the office 4 or 5 times a week? Are they just doing coding in isolation? Well, maybe they don't. Do they need to be talking to the senior leadership team that are in the office most of the day? So I think you really need to have a strategic lens on when you're recruiting the role. And this is the same that you'll have in your recruitment brief about what do you actually need. Are you just going to hire the same person that you've hired before? Well, you know, maybe that necessarily didn't work. So I think you need to look at a lot of things. And I think it needs to be like you just said about your previous story, about the full package. What are they? People aren't just asking about salary anymore. It's like you just said, what's about the holiday? What about the maternity leave? What about the bonuses that you offers? It's not just, I think, you know, like you said before, people would just ask about salary. They'd want to stay here for 5 to 10 years. Not a lot of people want that anymore. So, you know, you have to go quite in depth on those screening calls about the whole package, I would say.
Yeah,
you know, definitely.
And always linking back into motivators by different people. If you do have a company board made up of maybe more people who are at a senior level in their career, naturally they're a little bit older, are they motivated by things in their career history? Do they want to be based in the office because it's the way things were done? I think we'll see more of a shift, but how quick and how that takes effect, I don't know when there's companies wanting people back in the office. But as I say, companies are under immense pressures. You've got national insurance going up in April as well, which is bringing another cost level to each employee against productivity. Is it the safe bet to get everyone back in? Will people look at other benefits instead? Maybe a big increase in offering things like counselling support, health support, financial guidance support. There's a lot of topics you can bring into it. But I think as a business, as long as you're looking at what you do and having a clear objective of what you want to achieve and sticking to 2 or 3 principles, it could be the best way forward. And as a candidate, have an idea of what your non-negotiables are and also what you can flex on a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's more about a full package than just 2 or 3 things like flexible working.
Yeah. It's so interesting, isn't it? Because some people are like, I know even some kind of big companies in the local area saying come back 5 days a week, and some people are saying if you want to come in on a Monday and Friday, they pay you to come in a Monday and Friday. So it really does differentiate, massively, and for different people's approaches. So I guess there's no right answer really. It just depends on kind of the stance that you want to take as a company.
And for what we do, I mean, we offer a very flexible way of working. We do 2 days in the office together because we like that team camaraderie. And again, we have people motivated by that, whereas others more flexible at home. But for us, it's about flexible working. Sometimes we can have a project which takes 10, 12 hours a day, but then we'll make sure that time's given back in the future. And we like to reward with social events, holidays, things that people can then relax and get rejuvenated, ready to go back for the next project really. But that works for us.
So I guess it goes back to your original point about catering for everyone and how do you do that. Not easy.
Not easy.
No, not at all. And you want to get people from every different kind of background and every different kind of ways of working to make your workforce well-rounded and effective.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think if you look at your benefits as a company, and you do this really well at Ideagen, and you link them to your vision and your values, there's no point in setting up a new company and trying to compete with Google when you can't really deliver on those benefits and promises.
Definitely. And what would you say about kind of, you kind of touched on it a little bit there about your values. Would you say about your values as a company, would you say that that's come into it a lot more with candidates? So are they asking about the values, about the environmental aspects of the company, the social aspects of the company? Because that's something that we do really well here at Ideagen. And I've definitely found in the younger workforce, they ask about that, and that's coming more of a conversation. And would you say that you found that with your candidates?
Yeah, absolutely. Much more from a generational thing. And the questions are coming through much more about sustainability, what impact do they have on the environment. And for larger companies, that's a much more easy question to answer because of the policies in place. But there are, some really great SMEs out there who will have things in place and are wanting to develop, but they don't have them in place, but they're doing other great things. But it is a question, I think, that's linked much more to a generational aspect.
Yeah, definitely. Perfect. And what would you say kind of in the future, say the next 5 to 10 years, are going to be the main trends? You think they're starting to develop now, but we're going to see a lot more of?
I think AI will be a huge impact in the future of work. I think it can bring some really good initiatives, and it will bring a lot of opportunity. But also it will replace a lot of roles as well, as we know them. But then it will, in some sectors, we've already seen. I think one of the most obvious ones is banking. You've got removal of high street banks, the face-to-face customer services, because things have naturally moved with social online. But then that brings other roles, a lot more analytical roles, IT-based roles, developer-based roles. But the key thing, and I think where the challenge will come, is having people trained and being able to be developed into the right roles with the future. And I'm not sure in the current environment there's enough development of people and change. I mean, as we talk about generations a lot, because I think it is so relevant to motivators, but I was talking to a colleague recently. I'm the same 40, and I was at an age where we were in school where computers were more introduced. We were working with
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint was a new thing. You were taught on how to use Excel, and it was a new thing. And I'm at 40, so people older than me will really struggle even further. Yet I haven't had much introduction to how to use social media. I go and train myself on that because that's a new thing to me. So it is about a training and upskilling thing, and I think that's where the biggest challenge will have to come.
And how do you think that will kind of affect the type, like the roles, and what way that companies go about recruiting their roles? Because I guess you've probably seen, I know I have, a lot of CVs written by AI. You can usually spot them quite easily.
You can.
And about like the volume of recruitment. So there's now like AI tools where you can sign up, and they, even when you're asleep, they can do your applications for you. So the amount of roles that you can apply for is just, you know, insane. Yeah, insane.
Click of a button, and
Yeah.
then you're not really quite sure what you've applied for either, which is a challenge for candidates. I think for us as a recruiter, we try to go back to those initial things I talked about at the beginning in terms of that communication piece. So anyone who applies to a role with us, we give them feedback and we respond to. But for us, it's about that traditional approach, about picking up the phone, and it's having a conversation to go through and bring to life that CV. I think if we have a good candidate, the first thing we do is we meet them, we go them on Teams or face to face to really understand, because for us, it's about motivators and what examples they've done as well as a written CV. I think CVs are pretty redundant. As you say, anyone can write a good CV now, and you can really fabricate what you've done as well. But I think, as I say, as a recruiter, and the benefit of using a recruiter is we're doing those first stage interviews. We're really getting to know candidates before we put them out. How many candidates do you have where, for each role, where you must think you're not the person on that piece of paper?
Yeah, a lot.
You
know,
yeah.
You know, Ideagen, we're quite well known, especially in the local area. So it's fantastic that we get good number of applications, which we're very grateful for. But it does mean that we have to kind of, as you probably do, when we go through initial kind of 200 applications, we're getting rid of 80% straight off the bat because they haven't got the requirements. If it's office based, they live nowhere near, or so many things. So I have definitely seen recently an increase in the number of applications, but it doesn't mean that the value's gone up.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that us recruiters need to kind of focus on, and it's kind of one of the new challenges, I guess, with AI. I mean, it's brought a load of great things to Ideagen in the recruitment process. We use it to help us with our skills-based interview questions. We use it to kind of help write our CVs and change the language of our adverts to make sure that they're gender neutral, which is so fantastic. But then also it does has its downside in the number of CVs that you have to read, the number of, when we do kind of our Willow interviews, which is like a pre-recorded screening call, which is fantastic because we do get the high volume. Sometimes you can see people that have clearly typed the questions into ChatGPT or some AI tool, and they're just reading the answers when they're doing the screening call. So yeah, it's definitely a changing landscape, and it brings up great things, but definitely brings up some challenges as well.
It does. And I think one thing we've been trying to do more and more recently is say to candidates, look, if you're open to changing roles and you've been in the position for a while, don't waste time writing a CV. Come to us first. We will spend time with you and able to showcase you in the right way, because I've had some of the best candidates who just don't know how to write a CV, even at senior level. And then, as they say, on the other end, some candidates who probably are not what they quite see, and showcasing them in a very, very different way.
Yeah.
But I think that engagement piece of speaking to people as much as possible to understand it is the key to getting good people.
Yeah.
I wish we didn't have CVs in a recruitment process.
That's
It'd make it a lot easier,
isn't it? That people are saying, a lot of, like, when we go to these big recruitment forums, they are saying that CVs will be redundant in the future, which is kind of, again, an exciting prospect. But again, back to saying, people have always used CVs for so long now. Our manager's going to be able to adapt to that. Do us as recruiters need to teach them and bring them through that. But it'd be definitely, I'm excited to see what it's gonna
and there's a client of ours which we work with quite closely in Nottingham. We do a lot of customer service based roles with them, and one thing we introduced to working with them, which actually really helped, because for the customer service skill set, it didn't need so much experience. It had a great L&D department. So one thing we said is, if they haven't got the experience or willing to train, why are we using CVs? We actually used a video-based tool to showcase, a bit like what you've mentioned with your Willow, is asking 4 or 5 sets of questions where we interview on screen. And instead of sending a CV, we send the video clip with the person, because for a customer service, you're looking at their personality as well. And the CV can be there for guidance, because you want to understand where they've come from. However, we stripped that back so far that it was actually interviewing on a person and who they are, which was a great way. And if more people are open to that, it's a great way to really engage with talent you might miss out on.
And like, no one tells you how to write a CV, do they?
No.
And that's the thing. It's hard to judge someone completely on 2 pieces of paper
Yeah.
or 2 pages. Not we don't really do paper anymore, but
Yeah.
you know, on 2 pages. But yeah, it's definitely going to be exciting to see what replaces that. What would you say for candidates kind of applying is your top tips on how to kind of manage their expectations, but also get what they want from the company? How do they negotiate those expectations?
In terms of what their values are and what benefits they're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. Where in the process do they even begin to bring up that topic? I would say, I don't know about you, kind of bring it up in the screening call stages. You know, so I bet you've had this.
Yeah,
kind
we
of
do.
Get to like offer stage, and they're like, "Oh, just wanted to mention kind of this kind of thing."
I think we always try and do is look at what non-negotiables are and try and coach and educate around. Okay, you want flexible working, you want these. Why is there a specific need or reason? And it's looking about what we can flex and what we can't do. There's benefits can be a huge list of different things, and some companies just provide them to others, and some do a bit more of like a pick and mix place. And you're quite good at doing that here, actually, so people can choose. But I think for a candidate point of view, I think you'd really need to look at what you're looking for, what do you want long term, what's a right now, what's a nice to have. It's a bit like buying a house, really. You're not going to probably have everything on your wish list to start with. This is your first
That'd
house.
be nice.
Yeah, I know. Your first house is where you get onto the onto the ladder, and I always do the comparison. Get yourself onto the ladder, see what your non-negotiables are, and think, okay, further down the line, where can I get some of those added benefits? But I think in terms of process, I think honesty is always upfront and at the beginning. If somebody has to work 4 days at home, 1 day in the office, and it's not going to really work. But I think more than anything, if it's from a CV point of view, if that's what you meant in terms of how do you showcase yourself on that side, I think you need to be really fair and honest about who you are, but tailor it each time you do an application.
Absolutely.
And if your company you're applying for, so if I was going to apply for Ideagen, I feel like I'm quite aligned to your company values as a recruiter. So I'd want to make sure I'm showcasing and bringing examples of how that fits with your culture as well as my experience.
Definitely. We have some top tips on our website that I created last year, but that's one of my main things. Yes, AI can, and we touched on this briefly before. Yes, you can apply for like hundreds, but it's hundreds of jobs, but it's more about, it's better to have value and kind of making sure that they're good quality more than kind of quantity. Making sure, like you said, you really read the job description and tailor it to like your CV, make sure you're hitting those points, and same to prep for an interview, right? When you're doing your research,
you've got to bring out your specifics against the job you're applying for, and that's what we always coach for. So I mean, it's not negotiable for me as a recruiter, but before I put someone forward for an interview, I do a coaching session on how they will interview. Most of the clients we know very well, so we understand how they interview and how you can showcase the best. And it's bringing up those real life examples. Similar to what you said, we've got a range of guides and blogs on the website that we've created based on experience that you can access, and it gives you on how to best deliver an interview, how to write a 90-day plan, whatever it might be. But I think, again, it's that upskilling to know how to do it. And that's where a recruiter or a TA department really comes in handy.
And to kind of flip that then, obviously changes are happening in the workforce, the future of work. We've mentioned quite a lot there, but there's so many more that that are coming through. What would you say for employers and companies that are maybe a bit inflexible at the moment to kind of change their ways to get the best talent?
I think, again, you as a company, and it's same for us, you need to understand what you want to achieve and how do your team fit in with that. Write down what you want to achieve, what your non-negotiables, and see how that fits into employee policy. Don't try and be something you're not. Stick to your principles. I'd say have 2 or 3 benefits that link well to your culture and who you are, rather than picking a whole list of things because you feel like that's what people want to have. But you stick to it, stick to your plans, have that communication piece. More than anything, I think what candidates keep saying to us what they want, as long as all the nice benefits of flexible working, great holidays, is just having a real open honesty about what you want to achieve. How does your role fit in? What purpose does it have? That is more key than having unlimited holidays or a trip to Dubai every year. And we've learned that, we've learned that from the beginning.
Yeah.
I think it's sticking to your principles.
Yeah, excellent. Perfect. Well, there's Joel's top tips for candidates and employers. Probably a great place to end. Thank you so much for that. Really enjoyed having you here today.
Thank you so
Could
much.
talk
Jess.
forever and ever on this topic.
I know.
But yeah, it's been really, really great. And
Thank
I
you
hope everybody's found it very interesting to learn a little insight there into both kind of worlds.
Yeah, thank you. And if you need anything, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you.